Hello YouTube viewers, welcome to my channel Science for Technology. In today's show, Computer Wednesday, we're gonna talk about why Samsung is failing. So let's dive right into it. Now, first we have to understand the true scope of Samsung. Well, Samsung is what we classify as conglomerate, meaning it's huge, as in idiotically huge, as in almost the same size as Umbrella Corporation in Resident Evil series. So how big they are? Well, but their catalog is huge. It includes Burj Khalifa. So let that sink in. So they are huge, as in world's largest LNG carriers are also there. So fundamentally speaking, they have almost everything, which includes fabrication labs to tanks to fighter jets to everything basically. So they're huge. Do not worry about the Samsung mobiles. That's like a tiny division for them. Oh, they also have insurance and all that. Just I have provided a video down below if you want to look into it. And they are also leader in many fields, because you have to understand many times there are companies that are very successful, like Toyota cars. They are very successful. However, nobody takes Toyota as in they will say it's reliable, but nobody will say it's the fastest out there. That will always go to either Lamborghini or Ferrari or things of that nature. There is an image to that. Now, how true it is, that does not matter, but the image is absolute. Now, Samsung on the other hand is one of those companies that are very successful in terms of their scale, but also in terms of scope of products they make. So they are treated as one of the best in OLED manufacturers, semiconductor manufacturers, which mind you, at this point in time there are only 3 left in this planet, which are huge. So they're good, and in terms of their pocket capacity, they are very deep, as in multiple times of Microsoft, Google and all that they spend on their own R&D. So they are huge companies with very deep pockets. Such a huge company that multi-billion-dollar of Samsung smartphone is like a tiny spreadsheet. Like if you make a pie chart, it will barely show up. That's how big they are. So Samsung is huge. Now, there are competition to Samsung in terms of smartphone market. First is Apple. Now, Apple has reached a point where we classify it as a proper status symbol. Basically, mine's bigger than yours. So that aspect of mine's bigger than yours is a very critical aspect, especially in growing markets like China and India. Most Indians who buy iPhone don't buy iPhone because they have the ecosystem. They will barely have ever touched a Mac. But reality is it's an ecosystem where it's mine's bigger than yours. So that mine bigger than yours is literally creates a scenario where people will buy no matter what. You can create a phone that is so bad that if you put it in your back pocket and sit down and it will bend, people will still buy it. You can have a phone that literally goes boom, people will still buy it. No matter what you do, people will still buy it. So Apple reached a point where Samsung cannot compete, because Samsung is not a status symbol. Then on top of that, you may be like, okay, status symbol, let's say that will not happen. What about the market share? That also they are losing to BBK because they have huge subsidiaries, which includes Vivo, IQOO, OnePlus, Oppo and Realme, and all these brands are making huge successful strides in basically growing markets like China and India. And be mindful, the reason why China and India is so important in this conversation, basically most of the planet's population lives in these two countries. And to give you a context of that, the third largest country in terms of population is USA, and you have to remove 1 billion from India's population to get that, and you will still have people left. So that's why people are focusing on China and India. So these BBK companies, they are having huge basically swaths of coverage in the market share. Basically they went from not having any serious impact to whoa, they are taking chunks away from Apple and Samsung. So they are serious threat. On top of that, when Huawei fall, basically because of trade disputes, people expected Samsung to fill the power vacuum that was left, but that did not happen. BBK took that scenario. Basically OnePlus sold like crazies, Oppo sold like crazies, Vivo sold like crazies, and all these phones literally replaced Samsung, Huawei and even Apple from the market. So that is a very serious thing that people have to consider, that Samsung is not in a position where they're like, we got this. Even though they have the money, they don't have that we got the market control, and they can't even come close to comparing to Apple. But again, they do not. However, the situation is improving a bit, because this is from US or online sales market. It's Apple and Samsung share is almost identical in 2021 basically. So they are reaching a point where people either choose Apple or Samsung in US market, but be mindful, it's a saturated market. There is no room of growth left there. So people are focusing on India and China. So fundamentally speaking, BBK is already bitch slapping Samsung, and Apple already had bitch slapped Apple. Samsung has already got bitch slapped by Apple. So what's the problem behind it? Even though they have very successful products like Halo products. What does a Halo product mean? Simply basically think of this way: when a company like Audi makes Audi R8, they're not expecting to sell a lot of them. Those are supercars. They're not going to sell boatload of them. However, they're going to sell A8 or something lower than that. So basically, company makes these sort of product, Halo products, to whoa, look at our product, that is so amazing. And people look at the price tag, they're like, this is best of the best, but it's also expensive. I can't afford it, but I can afford something cheaper, instead of R8, A8. So in those sort of scenarios, they will be like, because of that R8, people are buying 8s. So that happens with every company. Basically, Samsung will make a Note series. Samsung will make flagship phones, not expecting it to sell a lot. They're not expecting that, but they're expecting, because people will buy, read the reviews and everybody's like, blown away by Samsung. They're like, dude, what is the cheapest I can afford in Samsung? And Samsung will have a catalog. So they focus on Halo products a lot. Basically, their Note series, their folding series, and flagship phones, they focus on a lot. However, the moment you come down below that, they start shitting the bed so hard. It's like they have way too many products. It's like frustratingly huge amounts of products. For example, this is an Indian website. I tried to have a basically app that screenshots the whole website. I could not even do that. It's like freaking huge. There are like 44 models. Now you may be like, 44 models is not that huge. Think of it this way, like you can put BBK, all those sub brands, it will still be more or less the same. And on top of that, Samsung does something hyper stupid, which is like they have RAM and storage option in these equipments, which should not be there. Now you're like, why the heck that should not be there? Well, think of it this way. Have you ever seen Apple giving RAM option? No, because there is always a optimum amount of RAM. For example, let's say you have a lower end system on chip. You can pair it with 6GB RAM. Everything would be awesome. What happens if you pair it with 8GB RAM? Not much, because the processor will not utilize it effectively. But what happens if you have a higher end processor, but you pair it up with 6GB, but it cannot utilize it properly, because it's like, bro, I do need a bit more. And if you buy the 8GB variant, you will get more performance. That creates a convoluted conflict of interest. For example, you can buy, let's say, Samsung M32, which has 8GB, but you can buy like Samsung M42, which has lower GB than that. It's like 6GB, and people will be confused. It's like, what the hell? That's why you should never have RAM as an option. That should never exist. It's like, this is the processor, this is the highest RAM we can put into the, or the most optimum one, and the end. You don't create an option. And I like what Apple does is like, you have an iPhone, and then you have a Pro iPhone. Pro has better RAM, don't worry about it. It's like, you don't have to worry, you just worry about that Pro moniker. In Samsung, you literally have to do a spreadsheet. It's like, this camera has this much RAM, this has this kind of processor. It's like, you have to do so much math, it creates a problem. On top of that, it like basically will start with 44 models. Each model will have bare minimum 2 to 3 SKUs. So that directly multiplies to 88. And then you will have bare minimum 80. Let's round it up to 100. And then you have to deal with color options. Basically, each variant will have at least one color option, bare minimum. And then you will have 2-3 options in popular ones. So you get the point. So from a Samsung factory's point of view, they have to box around 200 separate devices. That's just garbage, man. That's just garbage. It's like, this is like so mind-bogglingly stupid. I have no idea who is the product manager of Samsung. It's like, you know what? Rather than making some good products, let's create garbage. And it's like every time people complain, it's like, I bought Samsung M30. And people are like, dude, everything is about M30 is good, but processor is outdated. Okay, they released M30s just 2 months after that. It's like, what the hell? Now I feel stupid because I bought this. Because you have so much phones, every phone is a potential garbage, because you will have either 1 month or 2 months behind or forward. You'll release a new one which will have more options, and you'll be like, what the hell? That's why you always have to have fewer options. Fewer good options is good. And because of such a large catalog, no phone gets a proper update. Like in terms of updates, yes, Samsung is doing much better than it used to, but still not a point where it's like, Samsung update, done, go home. It's not that good. And on top of that, testing is really bad. Like for example, my Samsung F62 really does not have good 2.5 gigahertz Wi-Fi coverage. How? Because it has a big cell, and apparently nobody did testing on it. It's like, hey, does it actually capture the Wi-Fi signal properly? They just put it as quickly as possible. And I don't blame the engineers. Engineers would be like, in 1 week, please give me one mobile phone, and the next week give me another mobile phone. They would be working in crunch time 24/7. It's like, new model after new model after new model. So no phone gets proper updates, no phone gets proper testing, because you have to understand, to create an illusion of a great phone, all you have to do is buy a phone, whatever phone you are making, and be like, okay, go to Google App Store and find the top 10 used apps, and just optimize for those. Then find top 10 games. If you're making gaming phone, optimize for that. And what happens after that is like, if those apps are working properly, if you optimize them properly, meaning grand total of 20 apps, you will have a scenario where people, if they find an app that is like, not that popular, but they are using it, and if the app is sluggish, people will blame the app, not your phone. Many Chinese companies have done that. So that's why, like, you need polishing, you need testing in order to make it good product. And Samsung has garbage products for that exact reason. Like, you need spreadsheet in order to make out, like, will I buy 8GB is better with a lower processor, or 6GB is better with a higher processor. You do not want that. That's a really horrible product design, and this creates a poor experience for the consumer. For example, people will look at, like, Samsung Fold. It's like, whoa, Samsung is awesome. Halo product did its job. Now people go into Samsung side. The moment they will look at this, it's like, what the hell? Like by the way, many phones have similar price points. That's even more confusing. It's like you go with 6 GB variant of some 4 GB variant, it will cost same as like higher end one. It's like why it's really frustrating. And because people buy these phones and after using it a while they're like, dude, it's really not that good. And then people ditch Samsung, and that's how Samsung lost such a big market as India and China, because they never polished it. They never sat down. It's like, okay, we're gonna make a phone for, let's say, 10,000 rupees, 15,000, 20,000, 15,000, 18,000, 20,000, things like that. Like they should barely have 20 models, barely, and never a freaking RAM option. Memory option maybe, but that also, like, at least in these lower prices, just make a educated guess, especially in the models that have SD cards. Like, and not to mention Samsung already makes SD card. They have a, like, largest selling SD card division in Amazon. So just go, on it. It's like, hey, this is 128 GB. You want more? Use SD card. We also make those. So that's the problem. Nobody does testing, nobody does product evaluation. They just make it. It's like, I'm having loose motion, I'm just producing, pooping out mobile phones. So everybody who buys a phone that is like, not the highest end, not the flagship, they have really bad experience. And this is really sad, simply because this is one of the company that I truly expect to beat Samsung if they're doing properly, simply because they have high level of vertical integration, which is very, very difficult. Apple can achieve very high level of vertical integration because they control their app ecosystem, they control the operating system, they control the hardware that goes into it. So they have very tight control, and of course, consequence of that, they have a very good, smooth user experience. Apple can basically, Samsung can almost achieve that because they make their own SoC, which, mind you, Apple still has they can only design it. They still have to manufacture by other partners. Samsung can bypass that route. They have the ability to mass produce themselves. So not only they can design it, mass produce it, and optimize for it. And people say Exynos is garbage. No, Exynos is not garbage. Snapdragon is better. For example, think of this way. It's like, top 3 cars that can go 300 miles per hour. It's like, you don't say the car that came third is like, oh, it's garbage. No, it's most amazing. But problem is they never optimized it. They should have never created a flagship which has 2 processor SKUs, because that creates a problem. People are like, hey, I'm in Europe and I bought this Exynos series. Everybody is showing the Snapdragon one. It's amazing, but Exynos series is garbage. That creates a really bad perception. Like, you can literally have just a low level Exynos. People will still buy it because Samsung does have that kind of brand image. People will buy it. And if it's really optimized, it will work well. And Exynos has went from really garbage to good to really good to like almost at a splitting distance from Snapdragons. But they never, they don't even trust their own thing. It's like, even comparatively speaking from Huawei's point of view, they always relied on their flagship phones with their own processor. They don't even create the option of having Snapdragon. It's like they know for a fact that it's a flagship, we're gonna do our best and people are gonna buy it. And if they do not have a contrast, it's like, what would happen if I had Snapdragon? Nobody is gonna complain about it. So that creates a very sad situation where it's like a company as huge as Samsung, which is like a primary provider for Apple, is creating garbage products. And you have to understand, they have their own fabrication. At this point, there are only 3 fabrications in this planet. So they have it. They have supply chains. They have factories. They have factories in countries. They don't have factory in like one country. Countries. And they have proven service network. For example, recently I had recovered a phone, Samsung M30s. Now M30s had a display failure. Now of course it worked perfectly for 1 year, 1.5 years, something like that, and then the display, some fault happened. Things like that happen even on Apple, even on Samsung, they do happen. But when I connected the USB cable, it was showing a fine on my computer, so I just deduced that only the display is gone. I went to the service center. Now be mindful, I live in India and I live in a small town in a small state. Yet they had a service center there. I went to the service center, they looked at it, like asked me like a few questions, connected it, checked it, and it's like, okay, we're gonna replace the display. Now at this point in time, I'm used to service centers be like, okay, you collect the product and they're like, yeah, we're gonna send it and you're gonna receive it in 1 week. I was expecting that kind of thing. But what they did is like, okay, this is the charge, 4,500 rupees, and we're gonna replace it right now. It's gonna take 1 hour or half an hour, something like that. I was like, whoa, really? I just paid. And they did it. They replaced it. Like, I did not even have to worry about it. Now, what about the costing of the replacement? It's surprisingly good. Like, the displays is like a broken display is one of the most common thing, and having that display cost less than around 25% of the total cost, or around 30%, it's acceptable. Like, it's not like Apple where it's like, minor issue. It's like, yeah, it costs almost 50% of the new product, so it's much better than Apple's. And not to mention, even BBK does not have this kind of infrastructure because of their sub brands, and on top of that, some more sub brands, they do not have this kind of infrastructure. They're like, in all over India we have 22, and Samsung would be like, yeah, in one small state we have 22. So they have really good service network compared to others. Like, they could still do better, they could still be cheaper, and again, it would become cheaper if they reduce the product count. So stacking the components would would be much cheaper. Rather than having 20 replacement display in every service center, they will have only 5 display, which will be common amongst many of them. Because even if you're like, hey, this AMOLED is like 60 hertz, this AMOLED is 90 hertz, AMOLEDs are generally the same. It's just the display driver has to be updated or changed physically. So that's why, like, it's a very sad. It's like, I had such a good experience with Samsung. It's like, why the heck you are creating garbage? And like, they have service center in India that can reach rural areas, for crying out loud. Why are you creating garbage? So what can happen in the future? Well, you have to understand one thing very thoroughly. Samsung Corporation, they're safe, they're good, they're GG, they don't worry about them. However, if they do not fix the problem of clutter and garbage in their smartphone division, they will literally become the next Nokia, HTC, Sony, LG, BlackBerry, and Videocon, Panasonic, and blah 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 blah. You get the point. Like, this has happened where large corporation, we are making a lot of money. Like LG, it's also second best OLED manufacturers. They are really huge. Oh, Samsung is the world's largest memory manufacturer, by the way. So let that sink in. Samsung is huge. So do not worry about Samsung's health. But their smartphone division could literally fade like these sort of companies. And you have to understand, Samsung already had this sort of failure with Samsung cameras. Think of it this way, like Sony entered into camera market, which was dominated by Nikon and Canon. And they went into it and beat everybody out of it. Basically, even Canon started noticing their dip in sales. Nikon almost went to like away from basically pie charts. Basically, you look at the pie charts, like Nikon is like below Fuji. So at this point in time, so it can be done. Like, a new company can come in and disrupt that. But Samsung failed to do that. They still had the same issue. It's like few good products, awesome. 10,000 garbage products, nobody buys it. So it would be really sad to see them go if they keep continuing this sort of garbage idea of like, let's just poop out products rather than have few products. They should barely have 10-20 products, barely, not 5,000 products. So let's see what happens in the future. I do expect them to go bankrupt because it's like Samsung, they're never gonna learn. So this was my presentation on Samsung, why they are failing. Hopefully you have liked it, learned from it. In that case, please click the like button, share it amongst your friends. That will help me a lot. If you didn't like it, didn't enjoy it, I urge you to press dislike, press it twice to show me extra disappointment. Please leave a comment because I do try to reply to all of them. Subscribe, press the bell icon if you're free, and as always, thanks for watching.